Guys, this is Yoon, founder of Lush, here with the end of the year recap and AMA. The reason for this being recorded, just like our previous other few AMAs, is that normally during the week we're focused on building product, right? And so I normally generally get to this on the weekends, and moreover, our community is pretty much globally distributed across various time zones. So I think doing a recorded AMA works best because then people can tune in whenever they're free or available, right? And so before I start, I always like to do like kind of an overview of how this is going to be structured. So first, we're going to go through a recap of our 2025 and what we've got done, our progress, and then move on to the plans and goals for 2026, right? And then cap off the AMA with a list of questions that people have compiled, whether it be on our Twitter, Discord, or Telegram. So here we go. Starting with kind of the recap of 2025. I guess I'll do like a brief snippet on like the general market conditions, right? And so I would consider us as like a technology protocol, technology company, but obviously we do have Web3 components. So I'd like to kind of talk about the crypto markets in 2025, right? And so the 2025, I guess, was interesting, right? So people expected a more of kind of a blow off top, but unfortunately, the market kind of topped with Bitcoin at 125K, and now we're kind of in like a downtrend, with the market pulling back from 125 to about 80, 90K ish, right? And so what we've seen, kind of the progression of the market, not just this cycle, but starting 2021, is like a very clear trend, right? And so crypto Web3 basically started off as like, with these VC funded, high, fully diluted, high FDV kind of market cap, essentially Ponzi schemes in 2021. And that basically evolved into, meme coins in 2025 because then people, understood the VC kind of Ponzi game. And so they navigated, towards kind of the quote unquote fair launch meme coins, right? But that kind of died out again in 2025 because then people started extracting the meme coin market. And so going forward, I think the only viable path for the crypto market and Web3 in general is like building actual sustainable businesses, right? With actual real cash flows, not just in the crypto space, but also from the real economy, right? And so this has been our goal from day one. And so I think we're actually quite well positioned, regardless of whether the market is up or down, because we have a business and we have a product that actually generates revenue from the real world economy, right? And so to kind of transition from that into what we've actually done in 2025, right? And so I classify our progress into two kind of sections or two categories. The one is the generative AI component of our business, and then two is like the agentic AI, capabilities, right? And so in 2025, what we saw was a massive, improvement in the capabilities of various generative AI tools, right? Whether it be from image generation to video generation, and we basically kept, abreast of all the improvements on the model side there. So we basically improved or released more and more advanced, image generation and video generation capabilities, using the always the latest state-of-the-art models, right? And so the latest state-of-the-art models when it comes to content generation is probably Nano Banana, which is a nickname for Google Gemini, as well as probably Seedream, right? And so we have those models integrated into our platform already, and people can nowadays essentially utilize those tools to generate content, hyper realistic content, that's essentially indistinguishable from reality, right? Whether it be selfie pics, 5 or 10 second kind of real videos, all of that is accessible through our website, right? And so we tap into external models, but I think our edge and where the kind of proprietary kind of edge is actually in the prompting system, right? And so with our internal kind of prompting system, you're able to basically, as someone who doesn't really necessarily need that much AI experience, to generate, like I said, photo hyper realistic, these influencers or these AI people that at this point in time are indistinguishable from reality, right? And so it's amazing to see where the technology has progressed in the last 2 or 3 years or so. Because I remember when we got started in 2023, like the video generation was like very spotty, right? And so like these frames would basically like flicker and glitch out. Like that's pretty much, you just take that as, the norm, right? And nowadays you see Sora, you see, Kling, and you see other kind of these video generation models, and essentially, like I said, indistinguishable from, real life videos, right? And so again, that's basically, integrated right into our site, right? The content generation. And so now switching over to our agents, AI agents platform, right? Which is the main focus and the major development in 2025, right? And this will be like the foundation, as I'll discuss later, from both a software and hardware perspective of a flourishing ecosystem, going forward, right? And so I think in general, in the age of AI, where the cost of both content creation as well as software production collapses and goes towards zero, I think more and more of the edge will actually be in like the hardware, right? Understanding the hardware. And as I'll discuss later in a second, you'll see like a major edge and a major moat that we have as a business and a technology protocol is the vertical integration of both the hardware and the software, right? And so specifically speaking to the AI agents platform, right? What is the AI agents platform? It's a platform where you can essentially deploy autonomous social media profiles, whether you are like a social media creator, an agency, a healthcare company, and I'll discuss these various use cases that we've encountered in the past, few months to a year. You can deploy essentially these hyper realistic people on social media, but not just create the content, but also create these kind of agentic and autonomous social media profiles that can roam around Instagram just as any human does on social media, right? Whether it be liking people, following other people's profiles, messaging them, obviously posting content, etc., right? With the goal of funneling and driving traffic for whatever business or whatever kind of use case that you deploy, right? And so we can kind of speak to a couple of use cases that obviously we've encountered. One is obviously OF, kind of OnlyFans creators and agencies using our system to drive traffic for their models, right? And so how that will work is that you would essentially deploy hundreds, if not thousands, of these AI agent accounts on social media in the likeness of your model, right? And so let's say your model is, is her name is Sarah, right? Instead of having one account, just posting people and hoping for people to come across your page and stumble across your page, you essentially brute force Instagram by deploying 1,000 instances of Sarah, right? All posting content and using our essentially like spoofing algorithm to essentially repost 1,000 instances of the same content to essentially 1,000 extra visibility across social media, right? And not just that, not waiting for people to come to your page and discover your page, but going, essentially mass following people on an industrial scale, right? And filtering people using AI image recognition based on age, gender, ethnicity, race, social media activity, to essentially find active targets or users that meet your kind of demographic requirements as a business, right? So essentially, for example, right, let's say you are a OnlyFans creator and you want to filter for Caucasian, Asian, men over 25, right? You can use our agentic AI kind of system to use AI image recognition to essentially filter through thousands and thousands of leads, hundreds of thousands on a monthly basis if you want to, right? Once those users, once those targets, meet your filtering criteria, then these AI agent accounts go systematically one by one to essentially, start liking these people's profiles, following them with the aim of, hopefully getting them to follow you back, right? Now, statistically speaking, a good follow back rate is, 15 to 20%, right? So let's say you follow 100,000 people, 20,000 people follow you back, right? And so once those people start following you back, these agentic social media profiles that you control, for example, in the likeness of Sarah, right, can now go and start messaging them and engaging them further with the goal of funneling them to, let's say, your OnlyFans page, right? And that's just kind of one use case, right? And so another use case that we encountered is, for example, a healthcare company using our technology, right, to basically find using it for recruitment purposes to find, potential job seekers, right? So it's like a bunch of different industries, right, all using the same kind of system, because our vision of the future is that sales, e-commerce, recruitment, and whatnot, all these use cases will converge onto social media, right? And so obviously another use case on I talked about Instagram so far, right? And so we've another kind of major milestone that we reached is that we've expanded our agentic AI system onto Twitter, right? And so a major use case there is actually sourcing and funneling users for Web3 protocols, right? And so we're working with a couple of protocols behind the scenes to basically apply the same technology of basically filtering people using AI image recognition, and then instead of, for example, funneling these users to, let's say, an OnlyFans page, right? You're essentially using the same concept to funnel them to a Web3 protocols page, right? To work with these Web3 protocols to drive traffic and attention of real users to their business, right? It's the same principle applied to the same a different industry, right? And I think the business case of, let's say, these Web3 protocols paying thousands and thousands of dollars a month to even five figures a month to, let's say, hire these attractive influencers to essentially, thirst trap men and garner their attention for the protocol. I think AI will seriously disrupt that because we can create these very attractive, brand ambassadors or interns for these Web3 protocols, right? At like a 90% cost reduction, right? And then do 10x the work because you can deploy 100 of these, attractive interns and ambassadors of your protocol and then have them, try to follow and engage, hundreds of thousands of accounts on a monthly basis, right? So I think our agentic AI system will disrupt the business of Web3 intern, ambassador, KOL, those type of accounts, right? And now obviously, Web3 isn't that hot right now. So, but as the market picks up again, I envision more and more business, coming from that use case, right? And so to sum that up, right, I think you're seeing a whole, variety of industries basically all having, all finding value in, our technology, whether it be a healthcare system for recruitment, an OnlyFans agency for finding subscribers for their model, or a Web3 protocol trying to find real users for their community and their business, right? Because at the end of the day, commerce, everything is sales, right? Whether you're selling, your business, you're selling, a token, you're selling content as an OnlyFans creator, you're selling a job opportunity. Everything at the end of the day is sales, and sales and social media will just continue to, converge, right? And so this is essentially not just a multi-billion-dollar opportunity, but a trillion-dollar opportunity for AI agents to essentially disrupt, and make more efficient the sales process on, social media, right? And underpinning that, again, is not just the software, but as I'll describe later, a hardware layer, right, that facilitates this, right? And so to recap 2025, right, the two main kind of releases or the product releases have been, the content creation capabilities, which a lot of people from our community have been asking, right? And so I would say that, at the beginning of 2025, the content generation models that we're using were basically Flux and like Stable Diffusion. Obviously now Nano Banana from Gemini and SteeDream have essentially, 10x the hyper realism, right? And so as the technology has progressed, we've basically integrated more and more of the advanced models into our system, and we will probably continue doing that, doing that going forward, right? There's no doubt that more and more advanced models will be released in 2026, and I feel like 2026 is probably like the year of like live streaming. 2024 was probably image generation. 2025 was probably image generation plus video generation. And 2026 will probably be the year of like real time streaming, right, or live streaming, becoming essentially, like I said, more and more indistinguishable from reality. And so that was kind of like the recap of 2025, right? And so as demand for our product has increased, we've obviously reinvested some of those funds into building up a sales team as well, right? And so our kind of initial burn rates at 2025, starting at 2025, was probably like 35K a month, right? So we've gotten that down to 18 to 20K range. And if we just didn't reinvest that capital into building a sales team to obviously increase the users and the customers of our software further, that number will probably be lower, right? So we're in a fairly good spot when it comes to the burn rate. We're not, our treasury is fairly well capitalized, so I'm not really concerned there. I'd rather focus more on reinvesting the earnings into more growth at this point, right? And so that's not to say that our product is perfect. I would say that there's a bunch of flaws and improvements that we need to make from a product standpoint that I'll talk about later. That obviously will decrease the churn in users and increase the obviously the conversion rate when it comes to onboarding companies, businesses, and agencies that want to utilize this technology, right? And so with that said, I'm going to go into a outlook and plans for 2026, which I believe is the year that will really take Lush to like the next level, right? I think we built a solid foundation so far in 2025, but I think there's a good chance that 2026 is when we really scale, pick up the gears to like a whole new level. I'll discuss that right now. So going to 2026, I'll kind of like break down the business from the infrastructure side and the application side, right? And so what's important, like I think a very big mistake that these Web3 protocols or companies make in general is that they just build this useless infrastructure, right? And so what do I mean by that? And so like a lot of these Web3 protocols, like the game is it goes hand in hand with these kind of VC funded kind of Ponzi scams, right? That were very popular 3 or 4 years ago, but now people have gotten smarter, and no one actually takes these seriously anymore, right? So these there's a bunch of these like these kind of alternative layer ones and like layer two forks, which are essentially forks of like the EVM, right? Talking about like scalability, throughput, all this kind of BS kind of vaporware, buzzwords that VCs love to fund. All this infrastructure is essentially useless, right? Block space as a product is commoditized to the point where like it's so cheap to like spin up your own EVM fork that like no one actually takes it seriously, right? And so our approach kind of from day one, like I said, was to essentially focus on the application layer, right? Building applications that people actually pay money to use for, right? And so taking the kind of complete opposite approach, starting from the application layer, whether it be the content generation or the AI agent platform or system, and then once you build the application layer, that will tell you what infrastructure to build for yourself, right? To essentially scale your own system, right? So the application layer essentially gives you definition of what you need to build at the infrastructure layer. If the ultimate goal is a vertical integration of like the software and hardware layer, right? And so an analogy I would use is like, for example, like Tesla, right? They started out with building the application layer of like their business, which is actually the cars, right? And over time, the business of building these cars told them what supply chains they needed to build, right? So now they control like the actual supply chain, which is essentially like the analogy for the infrastructure layer, right? Now they control factories where they produce batteries for these cars, and even like lithium mines to like to supply the supply chain for these batteries that go into these cars, right? But at the end of the day, what started in the beginning was the application layer in Tesla's business, which is like the actual car itself, right? And so analogy here is that we started out with like the user-facing product, which is like the AI agent platform, and that gave us kind of like knowledge, or that gave us knowledge of like what infrastructure to build in order to vertically integrate the entire system, right? And so I'm going to discuss the infrastructure side of the business now, right? And so we've mentioned and teased the Lush network for like a year or two, right? By the way, I think we're coming up on like the 2-year anniversary of Lush, actually. I think because we launched in late December 2023, so time flies, right? But yeah, so we've teased the concept of the Lush network since like the very beginning, all right? And we didn't really know how that was gonna, flush out, or like how that was gonna, actually, become reality. But now we have a very good sense of what the Lush network will be, simply because, like I said, the application layer basically told us what infrastructure we needed to build, right? And so I think the Lush network, I think will be I think nothing. I don't want to like overhype this, but nothing like this kind of exists in the crypto market, in the Web3 market today. And I think this will be something that's truly revolutionary. And so, what the Lush network is and will be is it will be a distributed mobile computational system to power agentic social media. And so, what that means is that you, as the user, will be able to essentially put your phone to work and essentially mine social media activity similar to how, let's say, like Bitcoin rigs were like, providing computational power to, the Bitcoin's network to provide hashing power, right? To mine Bitcoin. What everyday users will be able to do in the Lush network will be, with their phone, provide computational power to provide the hardware infrastructure for agentic social media, AI accounts, right? Whether it be qualifying leads, following people, scraping data from social media, you will be able to, as a normal day user, right? Essentially mine social media activity in the sense that you're mining the Bitcoin network and then providing work, right? The proof of work in this case is not, solving mathematical equations on Bitcoin. The proof of work is providing your phone to provide, like I said, a hardware infrastructure layer for these AI agents, these Lush AI agents to do work on social media, right? Which ultimately, at the end of the day, is like $1 trillion economy. And so, and what makes it different and what makes it superior to the traditionally, inflationary, you know, computational networks, even Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Before Ethereum went through, their upgrade to make it, quote unquote, deflationary, is that a big problem that traditional kind of quote unquote blockchain networks face is that they are inflationary by nature, right? Because they need to emit their token as rewards, essentially for people to secure their network, right? And these token rewards are by definition, inflationary, right? And so, but if you're the reason for that is that these blockchain networks are self-contained, right? They don't actually provide value in the real world economy. It's like a circular self-contained ecosystem, right? Or closed kind of computational ecosystem. And that's why they need to emit token rewards for people to essentially, contribute to the network, right? Otherwise, why would you, provide or pay for, these Bitcoin mining rigs, right? Or these Ethereum nodes, right? Because you want to mine or, get these emissions of these tokens from in a proof of stake protocol to justify the cost of obviously deploying a node, right? But in our case, because these agents, right? Again, it all starts with building the application layer. Because our agentic AI platform or system provides economic value in the real world economy, you can essentially build this kind of like computational network. I don't want to say blockchain, right? Because like it's a distributed computational network, right? That can provide real world economy that people can play dollars for, right? And so if, for example, a healthcare company or even like an OnlyFans agency is spending tens of thousands of dollars, deploying these AI agents, right? You don't need to emit inflationary token rewards to incentivize people to deploy phones to this network, right? Because you can just pass the tens of thousands of dollars. You can use the tens of thousands of dollars that these businesses and agencies are using, right? Paying for the service and paying that as rewards to these normal users that are supplying essentially computational power to the network, right? Without inflating, giving out free, inflationary token rewards, right? That's like the problem of having an inflationary token or an inflationary blockchain system, a computational system, is solved by providing real world economy that people will pay real world dollars and fiat currencies for, right? Obviously, these dollars can be converted to USDC, right? But the point is that like this actually solves the problem of like an inflationary computational system, because like a computational system needs to provide real world economy, like value in the real world economy, right? In our case, it's again providing a hardware layer to run these AI agents, right? And the reason why some people ask, why does it need to be mobile, right? It's because many of the popular social media accounts or social media platforms these days, right, inherently expect users to be on a mobile device, right? Like, I think the statistics are that like 90% of people on Instagram access the page Instagram, right, through their mobile device. I think Twitter maybe like 75, 80%. Snapchat, TikTok, it's all the same, right? So inherently, like if you were to run a AI agent network, right, like accounts created and operated on mobile devices by nature have what they call a higher trust score, which allows these accounts to operate like, have a higher daily action limit, follow people more on a daily basis, uh, be less prone to suspensions, etc. Right? That is why mobile devices are very important, right? Like an account running on an Instagram account running on a PC inherently has more suspicion and less trust than a account that is running on a mobile device, right? And so that is essentially why mobile devices are very important, right? And actually makes it easier for like normal people to contribute, like I said, computational power to the network, right? And like I said, the vision of the Lush network is that at the end of the day, everyday people will be able to contribute these phones, right? These mobile devices, which will be running our own node software, right? Think about like Ethereum or Bitcoin, right? You're essentially downloading, their node software, right, to essentially mine for Bitcoin or stake Ethereum, etc. Right? In our case, you are essentially downloading, utilizing the Lush node software on consumer grade phones or mobile devices to run or power this distributed computational system, which is known as the Lush network, right? And so underpinning this, right, is essentially like physical like data centers comprised of custom hardware that we built, right? So we can have these larger nodes that we run internally, and these could be like, essentially like phone farms, right? Like that we run internally across the world, and then mix that in with like smaller nodes of everyday people contributing their phone to the network, right? And the key differentiation here is that a lot of people ask this too, right? Why not just run browser-based API automation, right? Because this is a key difference between a system like ours, where we're essentially controlling the operating system level, right, with the physical devices, and browser-based API automation, right? Again, like if you're a trillion-dollar company, right, in the case of Meta, or Twitter, etc., right? It's it's very like simple to basically detect browser-based automation, right? Uh, in order to have these like to make these AI agents like as indistinguishable from real people as possible, you actually need to have physical control of the hardware, right? In order to make these tapping, swiping, and clicking indistinguishable from what a human does on their phone, right? There's a very big difference between sending an API request to, let's say, Instagram's API endpoint versus you as the AI controlling a phone and scrolling just as a human does, right? So that is a very big differentiation between what we offer and what, quote unquote, so-called social media automation, services do, right? Control over the hardware and control over the operating system is a very big difference, right? And so again, I think the Lush network is on the infrastructure side is going to be a game changer, and nothing on the market exists today, right? Because most people and most quote unquote Web3 protocols are building the a thousandth iteration of a EVM fork with increased throughput and TPS with like increased block space, right? But you and me and everyone else knows that's BS, right? No one's buying Nomad or whatever these, Monad or like a bear chain or all these kind of BS, EVM forks at like multi-billion dollar, valuations, right? It's just VC vaporware, right? But the Lush network actually serves a real use case, right? Because we need essentially like the two main use cases of crypto, right? That's been proven are one, cross-border and global payments, and two, essentially global coordination, right? Of not just human capital, but obviously computational, resources, right? And so us as a business, right? We realize that if this business were to scale and like in order for us to deploy more and more agents, right? What do we need to do internally right now? We basically need to go out and deploy new servers, and we do that ourselves, by the way, right? We have custom hardware already, customly like modified physical devices running virtual servers, virtual machines, phones, etc. Right? Every time basically we need to deploy, more agents or an additional agent, we basically need to deploy more and more hardware, right? Because like as I mentioned earlier, the hardware layer is very important, right? And so what I think crypto is good for, right, is essentially global coordination, right? Similar to how Bitcoin was able to coordinate a global network of people, miners securing the Bitcoin, network, which now ultimately, functions as like a global store of value, right? There's no reason why you can't use cryptocurrency incentives to coordinate the creation and the operation of a global mobile computational system to, in our case, again, provide computational power to power social media activity, right? So again, the Lush network, that's what the Lush network will be on the infrastructure side. And again, it's not an over exaggeration, right? That nothing on the market exists today, right? And so that is the main goal on the infrastructure side for the 2026, right? Now, again, it's going to be a very complex task, right, or a challenge. But I think we're on track because again, the application layer, right, of actually deploying these AI agents gave us the knowledge and the know-how exactly what to build on the infrastructure side. Because at the end of the day, we are users of our own product, right, of this own infrastructure, right. And so no one else has the knowledge to build this infrastructure, better knowledge than us because we actually are using this infrastructure, right? So that, in a nutshell, is on the infrastructure side, right? And I think on the application side, right, which is what I'll discuss now, right? So obviously, we want to scale up, our operations to expand and scale our system to serve more and more, for example, OnlyFans creators, recruitment, Web3 marketing, but we also want to expand into use cases such as e-commerce and advertisement, right? And going this again, the software and the hardware goes hand in hand, right? And it's very important to control the operating system, right? The actual physical phone instead of like the API of like Twitter or like Instagram, right? Because once you control the phone and once you have control of the operating system, the possibilities and the use cases are endless, right? Because there are an endless, basically, there are endless of applications even on your phone, right? The app store itself is basically an infinite catalog of different things you can do, right? And if you can control the phone with the AI, if the AI has controlled the phone, it also has endless possibilities of what it can automate, right? Using AI automation, right? Endless applications, whether it be social media, TikTok, even gaming, right? Like AI, like once you have control of the phone, you have control of endless possibilities, right? And so this is why it's very important to like build a solid foundation from the ground up, right? Not going the kind of short, quick fix route of building API request calls to let's say like if you want to automate Instagram, right? Sending API request calls. Not only is that not long-term sustainable in the sense that these platforms will eventually shut you down at any time if they want to. It's the sense that If you want to, for example, expand your operations from Instagram or Twitter, then you have to learn a completely different API system, right? If you want to expand from Twitter to, let's say, I don't know, like what do people use these? Like, for example, TikTok, right? TikTok will like block or shadow ban you if you send API requests, right? But the point I'm trying to make is that it's a quick and dirty approach to building a system and not a sustainable system, because every platform and every use case you want to expand to, you have to like learn their API system from scratch, right? And you're basically at their mercy of whether you want to shut down their API at any time and shut you out, right? But if you build a much more solid foundation, is actually, like I said, controlling the operating system level, right? Because if you, for example, if you want to expand, let's say, operations from controlling, applying AI automation to Instagram to Twitter, the difference is not learning a completely separate API system, right? The difference is just you're just clicking a different location on the screen where the button is positioned properly. You understand the difference, right? It's like Instagram has a follow button on the top right, and X coordinates are like 200, 300, right? The XY coordinates on the screen of the follow button are like 200, 300, right? But in order to expand onto Twitter, you simply detect the XY coordinates of the follow button on Twitter, and you command the AI to basically tap on a different pixel location on the screen, right? You see how that's much more scalable than learning a different API system for each different platform or application that you want to apply this AI agentic automation system to, right? That is a big difference. And so, again, on the application side, right, what do we want to do in 2026? Obviously, expand and scale the number of users and customers that are using our system, whether it be OnlyFans agencies, Web3 protocols focused on marketing, healthcare companies, etc. Right? There are endless possibilities once you control the operating system. Now, I think a very interesting use case that that I'll try to describe using a very interesting anecdotal story is, I think, one that will probably be 10x larger than the use cases of OnlyFans and Web3 marketing combined, right? Now, and I'll share a very interesting anecdotal story. So I was actually having dinner with a fairly, I would say, like high net worth individual friend, right? And so this guy basically has, I'm going to tell you the story, but extrapolate the underpinnings or the kind of lessons, right, that you can derive from the story. So this kind of like fairly, I would say, high net worth friend that I met, basically having dinner, right? And so basically he focused, he's basically had no girlfriend for 3 to 4 years, right? Because he's been focused on work, fairly unsuccessful, when it comes to dating. And so what he's done is basically hired a overseas assistant to basically control his, Instagram page, right? Basically just go out and basically source dates for him. What this kind of virtual assistant does is she basically controls his Instagram profile and basically like goes to these pages, right? That women tend to follow, whether it be like these I don't know what women follow in specifically. It could be like these yoga instructors, these yoga studios, healthcare businesses, these celebrities, etc. Right? They literally extract the followers of these pages, and based on his type of what women he's interested in, this VA will literally start interacting with these girls, right, on social media, with the sole purpose of getting these girls to follow him back, messaging these girls and setting up dates, right? And with this process of hiring this essentially this employee assistant, right, which he pays $300-400 a month for, he has basically gone from having no girlfriend in like 3 or 4 years to having 10 to 15 girls lined up for him, wanting to meet him and wanting to date him, right? And this guy like travels a lot, so he has like girls waiting to meet him in like basically every city he's traveling to, right? And so that might sound like a ridiculous story, but if you actually extrapolate like what the lessons are, what the underpinnings of that story is that the actual lesson here is that everything that he's paying this virtual assistant to do for him when it comes to scheduling dates and acquiring kind of like leads for his dating life is exactly what our system is actually designed to do. Because our AI agents essentially control social media accounts and basically source leads, right, for businesses, with the goal of driving these users or these real users to their business, right? You can easily kind of expand this use case. And what I think the next evolution of online dating will be is essentially these agentic AIs, assistants, working for you directly on social media to acquire leads or acquire dates for you and setting up leads for you, setting up dates for you on automation, right? Because the reason why I think this will be a 10x market opportunity compared to, let's say, OnlyFans is that it's the same problem, because like the problem being that men have a hard time, actually finding women to connect with, right? It's actually a very big problem in modern day society, right? For every one man with that problem that goes down the route of paying for sexual content on OnlyFans, 10 more men are actually like in the market of actually trying to find a girl, right? Trying to find an actual real girlfriend. And so as a community, right? I mean, this is a crypto community, so I'm assuming 90%, 95% of you will actually understand that the actual pain point of swiping based applications, right? And you'll like a swiping based application, like for example, Tinder and Bumble, right? You go on these applications, you swipe thousands of times for the chance of maybe getting one or two, matches, right? How inefficient is that entire process, right? That's why you see like the monthly, daily usage of these dating apps falling off a cliff, right? COVID was like the peak because everyone was forced to like quarantine, and like they had nothing to do except go on these apps, right? But nowadays you see it's incredibly inefficient and of extremely poor user experience from a guy's perspective, right? Guys cannot win at the game of dating apps, right? Like I've used them myself, like a couple of years ago. I own maybe I try them out for like a couple of weeks, right? But none of it actually works. None of it will actually land you high quality dates, right? That's why Bumble's basically going bankrupt. Tinder's, Match.com is the owner of Tinder, I believe, and their stock is falling off the cliff because swiping based applications are not the future of online dating. But I think agentic AI directly embedded into social media has the potential, if properly executed, to be the next, like the actual true next iteration and potential final iteration of online dating. And it will, like I said, be 10x the market opportunity of OnlyFans, right? And there are multiple reasons for this. One is that, again, as I mentioned earlier, swiping-based applications are extremely like a painful user experience for men. Men cannot win at Bumble or Tinder anymore, right? Because the market has gotten so efficient that you just have like tens of thousands of people, like men, swiping endlessly for ever shrinking pool of high quality women, right? Because from perspective of a high quality woman, why would a woman be on be on Tinder or Bumble, right? Like a high quality woman that you actually want. There's no incentive for a high quality woman to be on Tinder or Bumble because they get plenty of attention on Instagram and in real life anyways, right? So in other words, dating apps, swiping based dating apps naturally select for lower tier and maybe average women at best, right? And like maybe they need some kind of like validation from men. Maybe they're using these dating apps to funnel to OnlyFans, right? Which is actually a very big use case of OnlyFans of like these dating apps, right? But from a perspective of a man that's trying to find a real woman, high quality woman, that's not what you want, right? But if you actually think about it, like Instagram is actually the largest dating market of all, right? Like these dating apps, like Tinder and Bumble, these swiping-based applications suffer from the same problem, which is that they need to create a marketplace. Right? A dating app is a marketplace business, which means that it has tremendous network effects, which means that network effect simply means that the more people join a network, the exponentially more valuable the network becomes, right? It's like a chicken and egg problem of like, for example, like in Airbnb's case, Uber's case, they're marketplace businesses, right? So you have to attract buyers and sellers, you have to attract drivers and the riders, you have to attract landlords and renters, right? In Airbnb's case, in a Tinder's swiping-based applications business, you have to essentially attract women and men, right? That's essentially a marketplace, and so like the problem that these swiping-based applications face is that less and less high-quality women are joining this marketplace, and by definition, that makes the marketplace exponentially. It's like a downward spiral, right? Because the exponentially less, the more and more men that join these dating apps, more and more men are joining these dating apps, at least, or not for the long term, but trying them out because the barrier to entry is just so low, right? You can like sit on a toilet and just start swiping, right? It's a huge dopamine spike, right? But more and more women are leaving these platforms. I don't know of any women that says I'm constantly on Bumble or Tinder, right? Most women you talk to will say, "Oh, I tried these dating apps out for a few days, and a couple of weeks, and I just left because I was getting overwhelmed with likes and DMs and whatnot," right? So, but the largest dating market of all is actually Instagram, right? Because Instagram is like a global, like it's like a monthly global users of like maybe like hundreds of millions, if not billion, right? That's 10x the market of uh, Tinder or Bumble, right? The high quality women are maybe on Tinder and Bumble for a few days before they just leave, right? But the high quality women are persistently on Instagram, right? And so Instagram is actually the world's largest dating app, right? And so having AI agents that can serve as essentially matchmaker assistants for you, right? As a man, let's say you like deploy a few of these AI agents, right? They can essentially filter these essentially potential leads, right? These potential dates for you, right? Based on age, race, essentially what your visual type is, right? What your type is visually, right? Do like a broad search based on that. If they pass that filtering, these AI agent accounts will essentially start, following them, following these girls, and start liking their accounts. And if they hopefully they follow you back, right? And this AI will, chat with these girls on your behalf, with the goal, with the singular goal of setting up dates for you and acquiring or sharing contact info with this girl, right? And so ideally, it's like an automated sales funnel, right? Because what is dating at the end of the day? Dating, it's ultimately just sales, right? It's a sales of you as like a potential viable dating partner, right? And so if you can basically like expand or repurpose our current AI agent system for the purpose of like dating, hopefully what you will happen as a guy is that you basically deploy these AI agents, right? And you just get an automated like you just get an automated sales funnel for you, right? Automated dating funnel. And you just get like you're just going around about your day, not constantly swiping thousands of like women with a hopeful response of getting one or two to reply to you right after a thousand like swipes, right? Wasting 10 hours a week swiping, right? You just deploy these autonomous AI agents to roam around Instagram, finding girls or women that meet your so-called type, right? Whatever it may be, right? Maybe you're into Asian women, Caucasian women. Maybe you like women who are nurses. Maybe you like women who are into philosophy, whatever, right? And AI can basically serve as the matchmaker to line up dates for you, right? And hopefully you just look at your phone. Oh, this girl just texted me. Oh, hey, this is Sarah. I got your contact on Instagram. She texted you, right? And you have an endless stream, right? A consistent flow of dates lined up for you all on autopilot, right? So this is what I think is like the future of online dating, right? Facilitated by AI automation. And so that is the big use case that we really want to explore going into 2026, right? Besides just obviously, continue to scale up operations on to serve the OnlyFans, use case, the Web3 marketing space, right? And I think this will truly be a game changer because up till now, the use cases of our technology, the agentic AI technology, social media agentic AI technology, had primarily be on the B2B side, right? Business to business. We're selling to OnlyFans agencies. We're selling to Web3 protocols, healthcare companies, etc. Right? This dating use case of the same underlying technology is the first, I think, mass market B2C, right? Consumer facing application of the same underlying technology, right? And I'm very excited to explore that going to 2026. And but that's basically, yeah, the plans on the application side, right? Again, all this, right, like all this, including this dating, this online dating application of our technology, is contingent on the same underlying infrastructure, right? Underlying AI infrastructure, including the Lush network, right? And this is why, like, as listen to what I'm trying to paint this picture, you'll see that having a vertically integrated hardware layer and infrastructure layer with the application layer on top is a tremendous moat as a business, right? As a technology business. So yeah, I think that covers kind of all that we wanted to go into when it comes to describing the goals for 2026. I don't really want to take up too much time. Right? This is almost going on 50 minutes now, so I'll just answer a few questions that are compiled from our community, and then we can just call it a day. So a couple of people have asked about Anna's Casino, right? So the actual casino is actually fully functional. Like, you can go to Anna Casino, one word, .ai, and you can actually see it, right? It's actually like functional right now. The reason why we didn't want to push on this now, again, like AI casino, like casino is actually just another application that just sits on top of the same infrastructure, right, that we built, right? Applying this AI agent technology to drive traffic and users for casino operations, right? This is simply another application use case for underlying technology, right? It's like we can do it, but like the reason I think I don't want to get too kind of overly stretched with what we're doing on the application side, because we only have like a certain amount of days, right? A limited amount of time to build stuff, right? So like if we get ourselves too stretched by launching this casino, driving traffic for the casino, that's going to take away time and attention for building. I would feel like much more kind of established and much more proven use cases, including OnlyFans and Web3 marketing, right? So like the casino is like fully functional, right? Like we can do all this hype and say this casino is like launched now, right? Visit this casino, right? But like again, we're not in the business of like hyping stuff, right? Once we put this like casino out there, you still need to acquire users and distribution for this business, for this casino business, right? And so hyping this casino randomly just for the purpose of saying we have a AI influencer casino operation does us no good in the long run, right? So there's no point to actually like fully launch this casino until we've actually basically like built our stabilized our infrastructure more in order to basically explore and allocate more time and attention to explore this use case of applying this technology to casinos, right? But to answer your question, the casino is actually fully functional. It's just up to us when we want to, go more public on, driving traffic and launching it, right? And so another question is, can you talk about whether IGX future social media platforms are able to future-proof against the Lush agents? Again, this is very important, and what I described earlier, right? So like, this is essentially exactly why you need to have control at the operating system level and the physical devices level versus just sending API requests, right? Because nothing will be 100% like you can go into like there's complex, I'm sure like you can do like machine learning algorithms to like even detect simple things such as like the pressure of like the touch on the screen, right? And how your finger moves on the screen, right? These companies can do that, right? So like I feel like nothing will be 100% indistinguishable from humans, right? But like that's it's much more complex to detect for like gesture like differences between an AI versus an AI agent and a human compared to just detecting API requests to their system, right? This is exactly why we never went down the route of sending API requests, because this is just very too easy to, like that type of automation is just way too easy to detect. And so foolproofing the system to blend in the AI agents with normal humans requires, by definition, control over the operating system level and control over the phone, specifically phones, right? And not just like PCs, as I described earlier, right? Phones, by definition, have a higher trust scores than PCs. And just other kind of couple points. Can you disclose active paying subscribers plus churn retention? Yeah, so we have a couple of companies that are paying us, a couple $1,000 a month for, $1,000, $2,000, et cetera, and in the process of scaling up further, right? And so we have companies actively in the process of scaling up to, a couple thousand agents themselves, and we are actually also scaling our own kind of internal agents to, the multiple thousands, right? But every kind of scaling level presents challenges, right? Like this obviously at the hardware level, right? Deploying more servers, deploying more computational power, but also at the software level, right? Like running 100 agents using kind of the same system is much harder to detect versus 1,000 agents, right? And so if you're deploying 1,000 agents, if you're running 1,000 agents, you may need to deploy certain strategies such as like time zones and sleep patterns and like randomization and things like that, right? Because like these so that these 1,000 accounts don't get flagged for like repetitive behavior, right? If 1,000 accounts are all waking up at, let's say, 8 a.m. in the morning and performing the same actions, right? That's much more easier to detect than 100 agents, right? And so if you're at the point we're at the point where we're scaling to thousands of agents, then we have to basically introduce more and more human-like behavior in order to blend thousands of these AI agents as normal humans, right? So that's a software challenge in addition to scaling up our physical infrastructure, right? But yeah, I'm like, our product right now is not perfect by any means, right? Like I would say like churn can for sure be improved by reducing the amount of suspensions. That is also why we're moving onto focusing more and more on mobile devices, right? To increase the trust score and by definition reducing suspensions, right? Retention and churn will both naturally improve as the product itself improves, right? And so that includes solving scaling issues, right? Behavioral issues, not just deploying more servers. Right? How do you basically blend in thousands and hopefully in the future tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of these AI agents into the social media platforms so that they run undetected and they are just treated as humans, right? Can we expect any non-consensual likeness? So on the content generation perspective, there's just no way around it. I mean, like anyone at this point can basically just upload the headshot, right? This also just speaks to like how much the technology has improved. On our platform today, you can upload a single headshot of any person and generate content of that person in any environment, wearing any clothes, doing any task or activity, right? That's how good our platform is. Obviously, like NSFW content, explicit content is prohibited. You'll just get like rejected by the AI, right? So the AI model would reject adult content, but there's no stopping this technology. Like you can't really stop people from deepfaking because the underlying models that we use, right? We tap into Google's model for content creation, and they don't restrict, like uploading a picture of Taylor Swift, right? And like creating content of Taylor Swift doing whatever activity, right? Like there's no stopping it. And I don't know what the solution is, but like, because even if Google like restricts deepfaking of people, right? Like a Chinese model is just going to come out at the same performance and just not have those same restrictions, right? And Google have no choice eventually except to reduce, or remove those restrictions, right? And so there's just I don't see a solution for deepfaking, honestly, because anyone, right? Like technology is like inherently neutral, right? If I give you a gun, 99% chance you're not going to kill people, right? But if I give a gun to a serial killer, right, the serial killer is going to use that gun to kill people, right? The gun as a technology is inherently neutral, right? the technology to basically take a headshot of a person and generate whatever content you want of that person is inherently neutral, right? Most people will use that technology for normal good use cases, such as creating normal content for use for the social media. 1% of the population will use that tool for defaking celebrities, right? They're just you can't really stop it. That's just the nature of the technology itself. Oh, and a couple more questions. Oh yeah, a few people have asked about the airdrop of our token migration. Our token migration was done in September 2024, over a year ago. It was done in an automated fashion where we took a snapshot of the blockchain, right? And airdropped our new token to existing users. So like the chances of you not getting the new token if you actually were allowed to or permitted to or qualified is actually virtually zero, because everything was done in an automated fashion. And so if you are having issues and not seeing the token in your wallet, you generally are falling into three buckets. You got the airdrop and you probably sold it. You got the airdrop and you probably don't see it in your wallet because you haven't added the new contract address, right? And the new contract address you can get from CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, official sources, right? Or three, you transferred it to token out to another wallet by mistake. Or four, you simply just did not qualify for the airdrop because you didn't own our old token at the time of the token migration, right? So like, I would say that every one of you falls into these four buckets. And everyone who qualified for the airdrop got the airdrop. And if you have if you have the old tokens, they're essentially worthless. So you can just throw them out or whatever, right? The new token is what you should the only token that matters right now. And let's see. And I think that's it for questions. So yeah, appreciate you guys coming on to this AMA, and I know we talked about a lot of exciting plans going to 2026, both on the infrastructure and the dating, both on the infrastructure side with the Lush network, and on the application side with the dating app use case for technology. And yeah, appreciate you guys being part of this community. Like I said, we're coming on like the 2-year anniversary of the founding of Lush, right? So we've accomplished a lot in the past 2 years. And but I think 2026 will take it up another level, right? So thanks for thanks for joining this AMA. Happy holidays, and watch out for scams. The last thing I want to say, right, in our groups, don't fall into private DMs. Don't fall for messages, saying they want to buy tokens from you, an OTC deal. Just ignore those conversations. But yeah, with that said, thanks again, and this AMA was a bit longer than intended because it was like end of year recap as well. But it will be also shared on all of our pages. So thanks, guys, and take care.